Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's BAInsights. And today it's a really interesting topic, one that you're probably all familiar with, but would like to learn more. It's SWOT analysis. And to join us on the session, we've got three excellent guests, all experienced in SWOT analysis and business analysis, to share with us their insight. So before we get into the topic, few things to mention. We will go into introductions. For any of you throughout the session, if you've got any comments or you wish to like or subscribe, please do that. I'm particularly interested in hearing your comments and your experiences for SWOT analysis as well. But that's enough of that. Let's wait to hear from Victor, Kateryna, and Harry on their perspective on SWOT. But let's start with some intros. So over to you, Victor, please.
Okay. Thank you so much, John, for the opportunity and also for the invitation. My name is Victor Asanmi. I'm a business security specialist, which is a sort of niche that I carved for myself because I am able to bring the best of both worlds of business analysis and cybersecurity together. And I've been doing that for the past about 4 years now. But 8 years total experience in business analysis and cybersecurity. And I'm excited to be here and I look forward to the conversation today on SWOT analysis. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Victor. Good to have you on. And Kateryna.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kateryna Stryhunivska. I'm a senior business analyst with the Invinity energy system, which is the company that produce industrial size and long energy storage solution. But I'm also marketing director with IIBA UK chapter. I'm a BA for last 3 years officially with the title, but I have an overall 10 years of the experience and I'm excited to be part of this conversation. Thank you, John.
Brilliant. Thank you. And always good to have someone from the IIBA on the call as well. So thank you. And Harry, last but not least.
Hello, everyone. My name is Harry Madusha. I have been doing business analysis for close to 12 to 15 years now. And I manage a team in the government of Canada where we create AI solutions to help to meet project needs for the government of Canada. I'm also the president of IIBA Nova Scotia chapter. And it's my pleasure to be here, and I hope that I can share my experience on SWOT analysis and decision making today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Harry. And should remember as well, you also share a fairly regular post on LinkedIn as well. I know I received that fairly regularly, and it's worth a read for anyone else. So yeah, brilliant. All right, excellent to meet you all. So let's start with, I guess, a fundamental question for a session on SWOT. What is SWOT analysis? So maybe Victor, over to you on that one first, please.
Oh, okay, great. So SWOT analysis, according to the BCS Business Analysis, the fourth edition textbook, which I read when I was pursuing my diploma in business analysis. So it defines SWOT analysis as a concept. It's a technique that falls under the strategic context of business analysis, which is a sort of key technique for strategic development process within the context of internal and external environments. Now, before I move on, I think it's important to clarify the meaning of the acronym, because SWOT is an acronym WSOT, which stands for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. But I want to talk about SWOT analysis from a slightly different angle, in the sense that SWOT analysis, in my opinion, it is versatile and it serves as a mirror and also as a window. And in my opinion, it's a form of sorting out pros and cons of a project, of a business, of an initiative. So it's more of merits, demerits. And I mentioned earlier, internal and external environment. So for every business, for every project, for every initiative, there's definitely certain factors that come to play that affect the success or the failure of that project, of that business, or of that initiative. So at a more strategic level, which means planning stage, which means brainstorming stage, it's very important to identify the factors that can help whatever initiative it is, factors that can help it succeed, and also to consider things that might be threats, that might be risk, or in that context, and to mitigate it, see how you can make lemonade from lemons, something like that. So just to round up, SWOT analysis is a strategic business analysis tool or technique that can be used to, first of all, strategize how to succeed in a particular business, in a particular project, or any initiative, like I said. And things to consider in this strategic approach is, what are the strengths of the business? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? And I would like to take this opportunity to just sort of separate SWOT into two halves and then the quadrant. So first of all, the strengths and weakness. If you remember, I talked about SWOT analysis serving as a mirror and as a window. So the strengths and the weakness both serves as a mirror, which in turn is when the business takes a look at itself internally. That is, what are the strengths of this business? Do we have money in the bank? Do we have excess money in the bank? Or do we have a huge technical know-how? Or do we have goodwill? Does our business thrive on its good name? Those are the kind of strengths that can be recorded for such business. Or it could be certain weaknesses that might exist in such business. For example, maybe there are certain skills in terms of people now. Maybe there are certain skills that are lacking. Or maybe the business has been bought over, an old business that probably went through a very damning breach, or a damning data breach, and it led to the business being sold, and someone buys it. And at that moment, at that current state, the goodwill of such business is sort of low. People have lost it, they've lost confidence, they no longer trust the business, something like that. That could serve, or that could be a weakness that needs to be put into consideration. So those are internal factors that could be categorized under weakness. And then talking about SWOT analysis as a window, which means looking out. What are the opportunities that exist around? What are the threats that might sort of stop us from pursuing or achieving those opportunities? So just to round up, SWOT analysis, like I said, is a versatile technique. As a matter of fact, you can even apply it to your own personal life, which I did, because I'm currently studying for my master's in cybersecurity. And before choosing a school, I listed about 9 universities in the UK, 9 institutions in the UK. And I did my SWOT analysis of all of them. The fees, the modules, the curriculum, the opportunities that exist within whatever sort of community they have for their graduates. So those are the kind of things that I put into consideration. So SWOT analysis is not only for business; it can also be applied and be very, very useful for personal life strategic planning, as it were. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to stop here.
I feel like you might have made it difficult for Kateryna and Harry to follow in terms of detail, but we'll see.
But I'm really liking this analogy with windows and mirrors. And the another one great point that you made, Victor, is that SWOT analysis can be performed at any scale, like an enterprise level, project level, individual level, and this is the brilliance of the SWOT analysis. And the another one thing that really struck me in your response is that SWOT analysis is always accompanied by other techniques. So it's not used in isolation. You need the brainstorming, like audit of the resources or other techniques that will be used alongside to reveal those internal and external factors.
Yeah, I would agree.
And the thing that you've already started to cover on when to use the SWOT analysis, what are the practical part? Yeah, because I believe that people and especially the young business analysts, they are eager to know when to apply the technique. So I think we should definitely to cover this part or summarize, because I believe you covered a lot of the things, yeah, with your example of the personal application of the SWOT analysis. But I
Absolutely.
feel that the SWOT analysis is used mostly for the strategic planning. And I have anticipated this since you used the BCS as the definition, yeah, that this will be the definition battle between the BCS terms and the IIBA terms, since we do have two representatives of IIBA, different chapters in the call.
Yeah, it's fine. We're two sides of a coin.
Kind of, yeah. So we're all talking about the same, but with the different words.
Yeah.
Yeah, and according to IIBA Book of Knowledge, the version 3, to be specific, yeah. So SWOT analysis is used to evaluate the organization's current state, to identify where organization position itself. Yes, like the external and internal factors. But it also can be used for identifying the areas that require the improvement. Yeah. So it's the combination of the opportunities or threats outside with the availability of the internal resources. And also this can be used to measure the or foreseen any unfavorable factors that could affect organization or particular project. So for me, SWOT analysis, the best use case is the strategic planning. Number one is change alignment, because out of the SWOT analysis, we always will see the change. So we would need to act in response to certain external factors to address the pressure from outside. So for me, it's the change alignment, strategic planning, and kind of part of the strategic business planning as the strategic decision making, because I see the SWOT analysis as the preliminary activity that accompanies and used as an input into the business planning. What are your perspective, Harry, on the usage, practical usage?
Yeah, you kind of covered most of the things that I would have said. I believe you can use it for your project discovery, the early stages of your project. You can also use it for process improvement initiatives. So not just solution delivery, but you can use it for process improvement initiatives, especially when it comes to digital transformation. An organization that is maybe paper-based and want to move to the digital landscape or change things, you can use SWOT analysis to know what their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. You could, and like you said, you could also use it for your strategic development. So it can work in all the different strata of the organization, the strategic level, the operational level, and the tactical level. And lastly, I'll just add that you can also use it when you're doing your change impact assessment, because that's one part that most people do not consider. You do a project, you do your business analysis, but you just forget about the change impact. You forget about how to entrench change, how to instill change, how to encourage change. But understanding the organization's strengths, weakness, and opportunities and trends tells you exactly at what point you need to apply certain change initiatives to ensure that change is instilled. So those are just the little things I would like to add.
It's actually a really interesting point, Harry, that whilst I personally think of it as very much a tool for strategic business analysis. As you were saying about process, I was like, oh yeah, that really does seem to be appropriate, because there are processes that we need to recognise the strengths of a process and we can improve them. I won't answer every point you went over, but it makes me think as well that there are probably other areas and aspects that we look at as a business analyst that sometimes the SWOT analysis will be useful to start thinking about, what's going well, but also what could be improved, and thinking not only internally but externally as well. Maybe that's functional design might be an example of that as well, to add to what you were saying. So
Exactly.
really interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, the simple definition of business analysis is to understand business problems and provide solutions. And in understanding business problem, you are doing your enterprise analysis. When you are doing your current state and your future state, SWOT is an excellent technique. to discover what the strengths are, discover what the weakness are, and maybe even figure out what the root cause of the problem is. Yeah, just wanted to add that. I'm sorry I cut you off. I really apologize.
No, not at all. We're all here to discuss SWOT analysis. Whatever opinions or information or insight you've got, please share it. I'm sure all the viewers will be more than happy to hear it, Harry. And I mean, the three of you have done such a good job of outlining what SWOT analysis is. There's not much more I can add, although what I will add is that it's very much a technique, as many techniques are. I think that these not just something you do on your own. You know, it's not a technique to just sit there in isolation as a BA and think what might be the strengths of this organization or might be the weaknesses or the opportunities or threats. It's one of those really good techniques for bringing together a large and different set of stakeholders that can have an opinion and have a bit of insight on the organisation, so they can share their perspectives on what they might perceive to be an opportunity, threat, or otherwise. I won't read them all out every time I talk about SWOT, but I think for me that's quite key to mention, that collaborative nature of the technique rather than it being on its own. So we talked about what is SWOT. I wonder, and we've talked about at a high level for strategic analysis, we've certainly touched on that it's appropriate for that. It's appropriate for process analysis. It can be used for that. I think we've just touched on as well, it could be used in functional design. I wonder, Kateryna, are there any other situations where you think it might be appropriate to use SWOT analysis?
I think the change alignment that I broadly mentioned earlier, I feel that this is the right place, because I do not know what triggers the SWOT analysis change or change triggers SWOT analysis. I believe it's the vicious cycle, but I think this is the great practical application of this framework and tool.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah, because it's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? It's like the change.
It's that part of the type of the story.
Yeah, really interesting point. And Harry, anything for you to add?
No, I still fall back on that change impact assessment, just in line with what Kateryna is saying, and the process improvement initiatives too, because at the end of the day, you're looking for a way to improve the process. And in understanding the process, you might just need to do a SWOT, and that you use several techniques depending on which works. But I notice so many people think SWOT is so strategic that they don't even use it for process improvements. And I'm hoping that with this podcast, that people can begin to rethink the ways that we can use SWOT analysis and how it benefits us.
I hope so. I mean, there's so many good techniques out there, and I hope I explore many of them over different BAInsights sessions. But there are so many useful BA techniques out there that are very useful for certain situations that it's definitely worth giving them a try to see if they can apply to other situations. I mean, as an example, we won't talk about it in detail, but I've seen PESTLE mentioned quite a few times in different ways over the last few weeks, and that's been used in a variety of different ways. Many of them that I thought way beyond what I was expecting. But I won't turn this into a PESTLE session. We'll talk about SWOT, of course. So I wonder, Victor, are there any final points from you in terms of when you think it might be appropriate to use SWOT analysis?
I think that SWOT analysis is best or is most appropriate to use when there is a sort of change or transformation needed. And I know that Kateryna and Harry, they flogged this a little bit, and I'm just going to summarize it and sort of advise any young BA or someone who's just starting that if you want to make a strategic decision, or if there is a change that needs to occur, you want to move from point A to point B. For example, you're working on a transformation project, maybe a digital transformation project, and your task is to sort of identify the current state and foresee it to be state. Of course, you have to do this alongside stakeholders. But as a BA, your job or your task at that moment is to be able to think in terms of how can we move from paper-based book record keeping, for example. How can we move from paper-based record keeping to digital or cloud storage. So at that point, that future state you're going to, from your current state, identify what works and what doesn't work, what needs to be improved on, what are your assets, what are your strengths. I'm trying to look for other words to use other than strengths. What are your pros as a company? What are your pros as a business? What are the pros of that process itself? Why does it need to change? Then when you're able to identify the current state, the strengths, the weakness of the current state, then you can start thinking externally. And I don't want to overflog Pestle and the Potter's five forces, but you can't just talk about SWOT analysis without mentioning those guys. So it's you identifying first the things you can control, and that's the point under strengths. You can control your assets by buying getting new assets, or selling off some assets, or raising money through other ways. You can always work on your strengths and weaknesses, because those are the things that are within your control. On the other hand, opportunities and threats, those are outside of your control. So in most cases, what you would need to do is to position yourself more strategically. Because, for example, if an external factor, such as maybe a political factor, good example is what Trump is doing to the whole world right now. It's a lot of other countries are sort of being affected by certain policies and decisions that the United States of America makes. For example, you have a business in Gaza. Trump is saying he wants to take over Gaza. He wants to rebuild Gaza, things like that. Now, as a business in Gaza, you don't really have any power or influence over whatever decision, whatever political decision the US is making, because it's outside of your powers.
What I guess the point there is, Victor, sorry, just to interrupt. I guess there is really just to, I guess this first stage is to recognize all of those external factors that could represent an opportunity or a threat.
Or a threat. And then you position yourself, because you don't really have control over it. That's the point.
And maybe there's we may come to it later, but I think maybe there's a view that some of these you would have there is some control over some of these items as well. I mean, admittedly, not everything, but I think the key is to at least start to talk about and identify the possibilities. And the next step is then to think about, well, what is the how do we mitigate it? How do we do something about it? I can see Harry's got his hand up. Harry, no need to put your hand up at all, sir. Just dive in with your point of view.
Just very short. I just remembered, I think you can use SWOT analysis for your post-mortem. So let's say you just finished a major project, or you finished a major initiative. You can use SWOT analysis to check what worked, what was our strength, what was our weakness, what opportunities could we have taken advantage of, what are the threats that we faced in this initiative or this project. And that can be put in your OPAs, that's your operational process assets, for subsequent projects, so they don't make those mistakes, or at least they take opportunities of things that you missed out. So don't forget to add that you can use it for your project post-mortem analysis.
Yeah. And actually, I've got another question for you, actually, hold the back of that, Harry, in terms of, I mean, we've obviously heard a little bit over the last few minutes as to what a SWOT analysis is and the importance of, whether it's through workshops or otherwise, going into those different elements, such as strengths or weaknesses. How do you sort of maintain objectivity when you're actually working with stakeholders and you're doing SWOT analysis yourself?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So, but I'll piggyback on what you said earlier. You can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. It has to be done in conjunction with other business functions, the business, subject matter experts, implementation subject matter experts, and others. So one way to maintain objectivity is to make sure that you run your analysis through more business function. So have cross-functional participation. So where you are missing it, the business can tell you you're missing this here, or this is the right perspective. So it's not just about doing your document analysis personally, get others involved, get subject matters involved. Another way is to go check the operational process assets. Are there any baseline metrics, that has been used before? Use KPIs, use benchmarks, to see how your organization is performing based on industry standards or based on past performance, depending on what you see. Another way I think you can maintain objectivity is to apply facilitation techniques. So your own ideas does not dominate, or if one person's idea does not dominate the whole SWOT analysis, facilitate sections. Get your colleagues to scribe for you, while you facilitate those sessions. And the last I will say is that after you're done with all this, get a peer reviewer. Get someone to peer review that document that you've created. That way you ensure that what you have done is objective, it's accepted by the business, and it has meaning to the organization.
Yeah, and actually the point you made as well, I'm going to pick on one of those points, Harry. I won't pick on all of them, but just around the getting the data beyond the SWOT analysis. So I think it's important that we don't expect that during SWOT analysis that everything that's said in a room has to be 100% accurate, backed up entirely in that session. It can quite often be a perspective or a perception. The important thing is to get those views on the page. And actually what we can do as a follow-up is we can do some research to determine how the magnitude of a particular threat or the potential benefits that we might have identified as well. So I think the KPIs and the data that you mentioned are a really good way of being a little bit more objective and thinking actually more data-driven as to what the issues or problems or possibilities or opportunities are as well. So thanks. Yeah. Victor, I wonder, how do you ensure your objective or maintain your objectivity in this technique?
Great, thank you, John. I think just to sort of summarize, part of the points you and Harry made is data. Data needs to back whatever analysis we're doing in business analysis in general. So SWOT analysis, what data, what did you learn from the numbers? That makes it more inclusive in the sense that you're looking at all of the different parameters, your KPIs, your business scorecards, your metrics, whatever it is, you're looking at the numbers. And another thing in terms of people now is biases. I think it's very important to challenge certain biases, certain beliefs that exist among stakeholders now. When you have different stakeholders, they will have different worldviews, they will have different perspectives, and I think that's okay. But make sure that they're being heard and be able to challenge some of the things that some of the perspective or concepts they have. Let it be challenged on the basis of, oh, this is what the number says, but you're saying something differently. This is what the record shows, but you're saying something differently. So it's more of it's not an argument, but it's just presenting the facts and let the best fact master win. So
that's right.
That's
I think in that example, I mean, it's I think a really important point, because I think there's probably a time and a place for the challenge. I think the SWOT analysis is one of those techniques where I believe that really want to encourage everyone in the room and everyone who's participating to share all of their views. And I think doing challenging or taking some research and really quantifying what's been said is really important. But of course, there needs to be a balance in terms of we want to make sure that we're not limiting any stakeholders' desire to share their perspectives. Because even though, for example, I might share a view that processes could be improved, as an example, I might only be a small part player in that process, but it's important I raise it so that someone else can do a follow-up and do some research to determine those opportunities if they're really there. That's a really important point.
And you could also be speaking someone else's mind.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it makes me think as well, actually. I mean, I think in terms of just something else that we can do to remain more objective is just sharing more opinions and making sure we're getting everyone involved in that room. And actually, maybe on that point, I should let Kateryna share her perspective as well.
I think all the points that we've discussed so far are really valuable and important. And really, I mean, my secret, that there is no secret, to avoid the objectivity. And actually, whenever I'm listening to this conversation, I do understand that the applicability of this recommendation is not limited to SWOT analysis. It's really can be applied to any techniques that we are applying to capture the current state, future state, document whatever we need to document. So it's really applicable for everything. So as my boss used to say, to get the right people in the bus, I think that's kind of ensure that we have the diverse inputs and therefore we have the bias, different opinions. This will help us to ensure that we are covering the problem opportunity from different angles. And the second thing is the evidence. We need to have the evidence, data, KPIs, to ensure that all the facts that we are capturing as part of the SWOT analysis have really evidence that can be used to support any statement that it's not objective. So we have the data to rely on.
Yeah, very good. And actually, it's a nice follow-on perhaps into a question that we'll have, in fact, straight away. I mean, because I think the only things I can add based on what you said, all of you, I know I chipped in from time to time, but is I think going through the SWOT analysis, being objective, I think we should just be open-minded as BAs, and hopefully we are. Hopefully you are generally open-minded individuals. I think that can really help your team and your stakeholders really explore all avenues that SWOT will naturally lead to as well. But I wonder, I mean, Kateryna, I'll stick with you if I may, in terms of just common challenges that you might have encountered when it comes to SWOT analysis and how to overcome them, perhaps.
Yeah, so I believe the objectivity definitely will be in the list among top 3 items. That's the common challenges, but also SWOT analysis is kind of a snapshot in time, therefore it's kind of static, and this may not work for everything. This means that you need to constantly revisit your SWOT analysis, therefore to reflect the actual external and internal factors. This can be one of the challenges. And of course, you may overlook some of the factors or important things that should be included in the SWOT analysis. I believe this is at least my top 3 things.
Yeah. And actually, because we haven't really talked about prioritization as well, haven't we? And I think, it's important. Everything we set up to now is important in terms of identifying some of those items that you would draw out from a SWOT analysis and you would ultimately put on the page. But before we then go into that detail and start researching some of these points, we need to try and prioritize. Maybe that's, again, one of those chicken and egg situations that maybe we need to get the data to enable us to prioritize, but it's still a very important point that we need to prioritize it as well. Excellent, thank you. That's a great start to that question. Harry, any common challenges that you would like to share?
Challenges I have faced is getting evidence for stakeholders' view of their strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. So bias, there's a lot of bias because people just come up with numbers sometimes. So you need to make sure that we maybe even get an external consultant to give us an idea, because we are internal, and we can see as well, we want to make ourselves look good. So maybe get external feedback on some of these things and also get metrics. I still have to boil down to that. You need that metrics, you need that data to show. So you are sure that your analysis is based on fact so that the solution will be based on facts. So another thing that I wanted to add is oversimplification. People hear SWOT analysis, it's one of those techniques, but it's a powerful technique if you use it the right way. It's an extremely powerful technique. So if there are things that we have stated in each of the quadrants of the SWOT, let's break it down. What does this mean? Don't just throw what's there. Let those statements be smart. Let them be specific. Let them be measurable. Let it be smart. So we're sure that we're not just putting vague statements in there. So I just wanted to add those 2 things: bias and oversimplification.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Harry. Victor, that'll be your view.
Just one. So we've talked about bias, and the thing with bias is it leads to vagueness. And the problem with vagueness is that it's sometimes it's very difficult to get stakeholders to be very exact on what the strengths or weakness of a process or of a project is. I'll give you an example. So I work with the local council, and a particular service provider is asking for an IT system upgrade. And then my question is, how did you come about this IT system to be the solution to your problem of, you say you're understaffed. If you're understaffed, how is new ICT the solution to you being understaffed? And his response was, oh, he knows his service better than anybody, and he knows what his service needs. And this is my issue with some stakeholders, because they are the SMEs. They believe that whatever they say that's what must stand. And even when you show them empirical evidence rather, or you show them data, then they hide behind, oh, you can't teach me my job. I know this more than you do. So that could be a huge problem. Bias could be a huge problem. And on the other hand, just to round up, is as business analysts, I think we should also be careful of what's called analysis paralysis, and don't overanalyze, which is on the other side of what Harry talked about, oversimplification. Now there is another side to it, which is overanalyzing. Just know where to stop. When you've gotten the meaningful information or evaluation from your analysis, then just present it as your own facts. Don't be too much of a hard work for people.
Yeah, I would agree. And actually, by contrast as well, sometimes it is about knowing when to stop. But equally, I think there's the opposite issue sometimes in terms of giving the participants enough time to explore each of the areas. And I think for me, certainly when you've got a large number of stakeholders, it works quite well to have a very focused amount of time on the strengths, and then another bit of focused time on the weaknesses before moving on to the opportunities and threats, rather than trying to sometimes condense it and forcing people to almost, when you come to the threats, you've got 5 minutes and you just squeeze in a few as a token gesture. Yeah. So I think that's the opposite side of the coin in terms of giving people the right amount of time to do the exercise. And maybe another challenge that relates to is sort of like the participation that was also mentioned as well, in getting the right people in, as Kateryna mentioned, but then the facilitation of it as well, and actually making sure that you as a facilitator is bringing in everybody and giving everybody the opportunity to have their voice, because invariably there will be someone in the session who is maybe a little bit more assertive than someone else, perhaps. Someone else might be quite shy in the room, but we don't want to assume that because someone might be a little bit shy that their information isn't as valuable as perhaps someone who's a little bit louder. So it's on us as a facilitator to give them the opportunity to share what they know as well. I think they're really important points that I would share as well. Okay, so I feel like we've covered a little bit around common challenges there. I think maybe some of the ways to overcome them is probably quite obvious from what we've been describing. So I guess one thing that has definitely come across up till now is that obviously it's not something we do on our own. One of the key components that come with any SWOT analysis is stakeholders. And I wonder, Harry, how do you tend to engage your stakeholders effectively when you're doing SWOT analysis?
For me, just make your sessions engaging. Let the stakeholders be aware of what you're doing. Maybe in that invitation email, send them something on simple definitions of what SWOT analysis means. Give them some examples, so that way when they are coming to the meeting, they are kind of prepared. So you're not coming to the meeting trying to explain the technique and then everybody's trying to brainstorm. So let it just be a very interactive session. We have a lot of things we do in our interview as a technique, so those ones really, really apply. Another thing that I think can be good is follow-ups. So follow up with the business. Immediately you're done with the session, engage them. You said this, I documented this. Is this really what you are saying? So get validation on what they said. confirm some of the things that they said. And maybe based on your research, you've gotten a better understanding, so bring that to them and, get exactly what they are trying to say. So those are the ways I think you can engage, make SWOT analysis facilitations more engaging.
Excellent. Thank you, Harry. Victor, what would be your view on how you engage stakeholders more effectively?
I think I'm looking at this from a different perspective, and that's the perspective of the organizational structure, the kind of organization where you work. So this is because in my current role in the local council, when I started, they used to see me as a troublesome person. Do you know why? Because all of my experience has been within in the private sector and the non-governmental organization. And when I got into Medway Council, they were like, yo, slow down, chill. Here, we take our time here. And that just, at the end of the day, I learned that stakeholder management, it's actually a function, to a large extent, it's a function of the organizational structure of where you find yourself. So if it's a fast-paced organization, if it's a fast-paced environment, then you know that the way you engage stakeholders need to follow suit in that sort of structure. A good example would be send emails, set a date, check if people are available, tell them what it's about, choose your venue, and go for it. After, when you're done with the session, thank them, ask if there's any follow-up question or additional question, ask for feedback, things like that. It just goes bam, bam, bam. Now, in other organizations, you have to check people's calendar, see if somebody is going on holiday, check when they will be back, see if you should talk to someone's boss or talk to them directly so that you don't offend their boss. So it depends a lot on the organizational structure. So my advice would be understand the politics. When you understand the politics, then you know how to engage with the right stakeholders. Some people are not really interested in SWOT analysis. Then find the next person who's interested, who's got high interest and high influence.
Yeah, and it does go back to the point that
so
Kateryna
it's
made, doesn't
very
it,
important to understand organizational structure. Yeah,
agreed. Yeah, and it as often does on these sessions that as we move on to slightly different points, it reaffirms some of the other points made before, such as the point Kateryna made about the importance of stakeholders and getting the right people in the room, as it were.
Yeah.
Kateryna, what would be your perspective as well on how you engage stakeholders effectively?
I believe that the key is to understand the purpose or the goal of the SWOT analysis. And also, this relates to the common challenges because the SWOT analysis is the beginning. So we will do something with this information that we will gather. Therefore, we need to have in mind that purpose or goal, why we are doing this, and clearly articulate the purpose and the goal to our stakeholders. And this will help us to ensure their engagement. The another consideration is actually Harry brought up that point to explain the mechanism of the SWOT analysis. And actually there is like the curse of knowledge bias whenever you know something. Like as the BA, we all know how SWOT analysis work, what is the, mechanics of this method. But our stakeholders, they might be not aware or never participated in the SWOT analysis brainstorm or the workshop before. Therefore, it will be kind of a courtesy step to share the mechanics with them so they will come prepared. You will reduce this ambiguity on what to expect, whether they have all the right answers. And the SMEs are supposed to know the answers. So we're caring about people by sharing the procedure, what we want them to work on. And I guess this will help to reduce the resistance and boost their engagement.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and you're right to call that point out. It's such an important point to be able to give the support to the participants so that they can contribute as broadly and extensively and freely as they're able to, and as much support as as we can give them, similar to the example Harry mentioned, in terms of sharing with them up front what to expect, and working with them throughout, as you're saying, Kateryna, to guide them through is really important. And perhaps to add to that, maybe sharing with them examples of slightly different SWOT analysis, something they might be more familiar with in terms of concept rather than necessarily the projects you might be on, but so they can at least go, okay, now I understand what is happening, what SWOT analysis is going to ultimately deliver, as an example. And importantly, I think what we're going to do with this SWOT analysis, I think you can really get stakeholders engaged if they know that they're not just going through the motions, and actually the outcome of their time is actually going to be some valuable focus on areas that they really care about as well. So you've really sort of really all contributed to a very similar message there of the importance of that support, and more, of course. So I guess the last question maybe, and Victor, I'm going to ask you this one first, in terms of, is there anything that you might suggest could be changed, or you'd like to see changed or added or even removed from SWOT analysis?
No, nothing to remove. I think SWOT analysis stood the test of time, and it's tested and trusted. It's a tested and trusted technique. However, one addition I would like to see is monitoring. I think especially in an organization or in a company, in a business, that things change quickly. It will be important to understand that what's the strength now might not be a strength in the next 2 months, might not be a strength in the next 6 months. What's a threat now could actually be an opportunity in the near future. So I would really like to see that sort of addition where you can monitor how, especially in a sort of volatile or not dynamic, but fast changing environment. I would like for SWOT analysis to be able to adapt to those kind of changes as they happen.
Maybe it's difficult, and I know, Kateryna, you mentioned that it is a point in time type exercise you mentioned before.
Yeah, it's a snapshot.
That's it, and maybe there's an element of is it something that firms and organisations can periodically revisit, so that they can, I guess, as part of their change process, they're evaluating their situation. It feels like it might be appropriate in that sense. I would agree. I guess it's just about having that purpose, isn't it, for doing it, rather than evolving it with no remit or capability to fix the outcomes, I guess. But yeah, really, really interesting point to kick us off on that final question, Victor. And Harry, I'll go to you next on that question in terms of, is there anything you would like to change or add, or
maybe something to add. And if you look at each of the elements of the SWOT analysis, you don't really see the implications of each point in the strength, weakness, and weakness. So maybe add something that talks about the implication of each of the points. Implications could be negative from the negative perspective, and maybe value for the positive characteristics. So maybe something on value and impact, so that when people see a threat, they know what impact that threat is going to have on the project or the organization. So put a weight on the threat. So at least it helps us gauge what we should work on first and what we should work on later. So it makes it kind of iterative. So I think having that value/impact to each of the notes in the SWOT analysis will actually give it more life, and will actually make it more beneficial to people. Just those two things.
Really interesting point. I wonder if this is going to trigger a race between IIBA Nova Scotia and IIBA London and BCS to basically take the SWOT analysis and draw another extension to it, to start thinking about the rationales and the measurement.
I won't be surprised to see that.
But I'll ask that same question to Kateryna anyway. Give her the opportunity to share her perspective on it.
I'm totally supporting Harry's point regarding the weight and priority, and this actually slightly touch upon this, the prioritization, because whenever we capture those internal and external factors, we are not really prioritizing them, and we don't know which one to address first. And I guess the weight and the priority will help us to improve the SWOT analysis result. And the another one thing, since I truly believe that the SWOT analysis is just the beginning of the journey, is to include the risk, because we will have the risk associated with each and every factor that will help the organization, project to make a decision on what to do next with these results.
Yeah,
so yeah.
I would agree. And I think for me, I mean, I really can't top what the three of you have added. I think they're all excellent points. I think maybe what I might add, and actually sort of come across very much in this conversation, is broader guidance and awareness. And apologies, I might be doing IIBA a disservice, or BCS. There might be loads of guidance. I'm sure there is a fair amount of it already. But I guess the more guidance that we can share with people on the value and different uses of SWOT analysis, the better. And maybe if there's other opportunities, maybe the IIBA might be a really good opportunity, an organisation to see if this is possible, but to maybe share an example or two that have happened in real life. Because I know it's quite difficult normally as organisations that. I know, Victor, you mentioned the council. I work for a financial services consultancy. We can't necessarily take our SWOT analysis from one company and go and share it with everyone else. But it'd certainly be good for to have an example, a few live examples to share what it could look like. Of course, the magnitude of what we've all been talking about over the last almost an hour comes beyond just that image. And I think that's probably the challenge, isn't it? There's an image and there's a way to create the SWOT, but the majority of the value comes around the conversations, the facilitation, the stakeholders around it. And now the new ideas that Harry come up with to put that extra edge to it as well. Brilliant. Well, I think we've covered the subject very comprehensively. I feel like hopefully those people that have been good enough to view this session will now be a lot more familiar with what is SWOT analysis. As always, I learn a little bit with every session as well, and I'll take a few of those away. So I think the only thing to say really, everybody, is thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your insight. To anyone watching, just look out for Harry and Kateryna and Victor in the wider BA community. Obviously, look out for future BAInsights videos, and feel free to like and subscribe and comment, of course. But otherwise, that's a wrap, folks. So we'll see you soon. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.